Hey guys, glory to Jesus Christ. So, Texas strikes again. Texas executed serial killer Tommy Lynn Sells a few days ago. And I did not know him, I did not write to him. The only reason I'm mentioning it is because he was kind of one of the more infamous inmates, and so I do write several of the other guys that are on their death row there, and so I was aware of who he was, and when I opened up my newsreader a couple days ago, and oh my goodness, look, they finally did it. So, this, of course, leads to a video about the death penalty. But not really. I want to use the death penalty as a springboard to talk about how to treat people in general. And this is, by the way, this is my opinion. Let me be very clear about this. I'm just going to tell you what I think. If you do not agree with me, that's fine. I really don't want to argue about this. You know, the death penalty, this is an extraordinarily emotional issue, and I'm not about to tell anyone, especially the people whose lives have been personally touched by horrific crimes, I'm not about to sit here and say that you're wrong for wanting, to see somebody pay for their crimes. I'm not going to even go there, because that's just non-compassionate, So please understand that. Please do not take this or any other video that I make, please don't take it personally. I absolutely do not mean to disrespect anybody. So, just so we're clear on that. Now, death penalty. Don't like it. Why? Why don't I like it? I'm not even going to get into the statistics either. You know what the statistics are. You can Google them. You don't need me to sit here and read you statistics. Ultimately, this is just going to be my opinion. I don't like the death penalty because I think that you cannot fight darkness with darkness. You can try, and we do. And we really like to do that. But ultimately, you're not going to be successful fighting darkness with darkness in any aspect of life. And that transcends even the death row issue, guys. This can go all the way from death row, this can go to even just talking to people that you meet in day-to-day life. It definitely has applications for child rearing and for relationships between adults. So what I'm trying to learn from this whole experience, researching this death penalty issue, because of course if you are involved in prison ministry in any way, you do have to do psychological and emotional business with the death penalty, even if you are not working with people who are on death row. But I have a lot of friends that are on death row. So it's a day-to-day reality for me, and especially for them, obviously. So here's what I've come up with. And again, this is my opinion, you can take it or leave it. I don't believe the fighting darkness with darkness works in any aspect of life. When I was a child and an adolescent, I had a lot of close contact with somebody who was extremely unpredictable and prone to screaming and shouting and being absolutely horrible, because this person was under a lot of stress at work and didn't always understand that they were taking a lot of that out on their family, particularly on me. Not constantly, of course, but the point is, when you have someone in your life, it doesn't matter if it's a spouse, if it's a parent, if it's a teacher, if it's anyone, a co-worker, doesn't matter, who is totally just going nuclear with no warning or little warning, and for ridiculous reasons. What happens is, there's two things that happen. And I believe that this applies, folks, to prison, because I believe that it applies to the formation of a sociopath. We're going to get there in a minute. Okay. When you have that kind of situation, what happens is those giant nuclear, Tsar bomba blow-ups, they may be able to modify behavior Okay? Because, especially if you're a child or an adolescent, who likes getting screamed and yelled at? I certainly did not. I don't know anybody that did. So what happens is, okay, you learn what to do and what not to do, kind of, sort of, maybe. But the problem is that at the same time, okay, well, here's your behavior. So your behavior's out here, and you know what you need to do or not do, usually in order to avoid nuclear meltdown. So here, but there's this space between your behavior and who you actually are, and what you're actually thinking and feeling, and what you're actually wanting to do. There's a big gap. And you learn quickly that you need that gap there, because who you are and what you think and what your natural reactions are going to get you in trouble. So you have this buffer. You're doing what you need to do to have peace, kind of, sort of, maybe on the home front on some superficial level. But guess what? On the inside here, number one, you're going to be angry. Even if you don't know you're angry, you're going to be angry. But even more importantly than that, you're never going to connect with anybody on a real human fundamental level. Because what you're learning is, oh, I have to have this space here because this is unacceptable. So I'm going to act like I need to for my day-to-day life. And that's going to bleed over to how I interact with most people, or really with all people, except for myself. Now, what does that mean? Not only do you get angry and you get lonely, but also when you're not connecting with people, as human beings, what is happening to you is you are not learning empathy. You are not developing as a human being. Okay, you're getting older, you're going to school, you're learning facts, you're learning about how to live in the world. Fine, good, those are all necessary. But you are not developing that empathy that you need. Because you're hidden here. And your behavior is what it is as a response to the external darkness, not out of a desire to, live a grateful, loving, generous life. And why would you develop that? Why would you want to be grateful and loving and generous when you're not good enough? So you have this divide here. Am I making sense? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? What is the defining characteristic of a sociopath? Inability to feel empathy for other people. And that's what Tommy Lynn Sells was. He was a sociopath. He was like a super sociopath. I believe sociopathy is a spectrum disorder. It's not a light switch. You're not either sociopathic or you're not. I believe that it's a spectrum. Remember, most sociopaths are not serial killers. Sociopaths can live and work among you. And they do. We all know them. You may not know who it is, but we do all know them. So, darkness with darkness, anger with anger, rage with rage, violence with violence doesn't work. Because ultimately, correcting behavior, that is not the problem. It's not the behavior that's the problem. It's the source of it. Because a person who acts according to a set of rules, regardless of if it's the law, or if it's, how their parents want them to behave, how their spouse, demands that they behave, whatever the situation is, if they are doing it simply to keep the peace, to avoid negativity, okay, well, what they're doing is that they're kind of living a lie, right? They're not doing it for the proper reasons. Which means you're not actually, that person is not improving. That person is not growing as a human being. They are becoming something that really isn't human. They are not acting from the proper motivation. And so ultimately, when that behavior, the good behavior, ceases to benefit them, they're going to adopt other behavior that they feel is going to benefit them as well. Do you see what I'm saying here? See, this really isn't a message about the death penalty so much as it is about how we deal with people. I remember I was talking to my dad once about this. My father is a teacher, and he had this student who was, I think he was like 14 or 15, and I guess he was kind of like a punk kid, like kind of snot-nosed, little, disrespectful, pushing his boundaries, seeing what he could get away with, and he used to really kind of drive my dad nuts. And so my dad was, relating to me that all of a sudden, this guy, his attitude changed, and all of a sudden he was like towing the line and being like, it's like he'd done a 180. And I said, oh, really? Wow, that's surprising. What happened? Do you know what happened? I was like, did you yell at him? And my dad said, no, I didn't. But I think that what finally happened was he upset the wrong people, and they took him in the bathroom of this high school and beat the snot out of him. And so now he's, so that taught him to behave the right way. And that, he's kind of smiling when he said that, but that really disgusted me. And because I thought, okay, well, maybe that is why. But if that is why, then you got a worse problem. Because none of that respect, none of that gentleness, none of that civility is genuine. Which means it's not gonna stick. And thinking back on my own life, all the times that I've had various people go postal on me. And I'm not limiting this to my parents. Okay? I'm talking about even in, when I was in college, various sundry things happened. Even when the person had a point. When I had really done something wrong, when I needed to apologize, or when I needed to change my behavior, even when they had a legitimate point. Any improvement that I made in my own behavior, permanently, and in my own soul, more importantly, was not because of what they did, was not because they were harsh, was not because they were acting awful towards me. It was in spite of it. Sometimes it was coincidental with it, and sometimes it was literally me saying to myself, okay, you know what? Yeah, I am going to change my behavior because I don't want to be like you. And you're ridiculous, and you're screaming and yelling and cursing at me, and etc., etc., etc. So you are wrong. And as much as now I don't want to really be nice to you, I'm going to try to reform myself because I don't, I want to rise above your level. Now, that's really not a great thing to think, is it? That's really not a very humble attitude. So I'm not telling you I was right, but I'm saying that's what happened. And then I'm thinking about the people around me. And I'm thinking, when they have been in a similar situation where there's been some kind of massive blow up and they've been kind of at the center of it for whatever reason, justified or not, when they have really improved their behavior and improved their selves and really, made that 180 of repentance, which means not only do you stop doing whatever it is you're doing that's bad, but then you start going in the proper direction and trying to make amends. I think it's a grievous mistake to say, well, they did that as a response to this huge, no, they did not. It was in spite of it or completely unrelated to it. So let us attend here, because this is a really important thing. If we can really get to know ourselves here, I think we're going to find that as satisfying as it can feel to blow up at somebody and scream and yell and call them all kinds of dirty names, it could be in court, it could be in the prison, it could be on television, it could be just person to person, whatever. That is wrong. That's darkness with darkness. You're not going to fight darkness with darkness. You may feel good momentarily, but ultimately, guess what? You don't feel better. Because you know that you have now besmirched your own wedding garment. So now you're dirty too. I don't even know if any of that makes sense. But anyway, I'm out of time. So, God bless you all.